The most important award of them all, fantasy football MVP.
My MVP, cut and dry, Lamar Jackson, the #1 player overall, #1 quarterback overall. He's the guy that won me a championship, and I traded for him. Lamar Jackson just had a ton of great games, all sorts of 30 balls in here. He ran for a ton of yards too, threw a bunch of touchdowns. #1 player overall, pretty easy pick.
For me, it was Terry McLaurin. He was a guy who went way too late in all of our drafts, and I picked him up in a number of leagues, and he was very, very good to me. Finished 8 in overall wide receiver fantasy points. For a guy who's going that late in the rounds, and I picked him up, to me, that value there just makes him MVP for me. Obviously, you could look at like Jamar Chase as like the wide receiver MVP, but for me, for the value I got and the amount of leagues I had him in, that's my MVP this year.
For me, my fantasy MVP is quite simple. I mean, it's Brock Bowers. I had him in both leagues. You get the #1 tight end. It changed the entire game. He just gives you such a competitive advantage week over week over everybody that you play against. And the bust weeks weren't there. He really didn't have horrible weeks quite often. I mean, that's something that you don't often see from a tight end. Like, even the great ones have a bad week every once in a while. Brock had maybe 2, maybe 3 all year that were going to potentially cost you a week. And that, more so than anything else, is why he's my fantasy MVP.
My fantasy MVP, another rookie. He dead ass changed my life. I don't even know the words to describe him. I feel a tingly sensation inside my body when I start to talk about him. It's Jaden Daniels, man. This man, he had a great start to the season. Then he got injured, and he had some rough games in there, you know, coming back from that rib injury. But then, down the stretch of the season, from week 12 on, when you needed that man the most, he delivered.